Well, again, welcome. My name is Nayaswami Devarshi. This is Brahmachari Vineet, who will also be sharing. And each month we take a different overall topic. And then for the 4 or 5 Saturdays of that month, we'll focus on different aspects of it. This month, the topic is God alone. And it's about not just the life, but just the approach and attitude of Sister Gyanamata, the most advanced woman disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda. And she wrote a book, God Alone, that I would just highly, highly recommend. Just keep it around. It's just in tough times, especially, she was tough and she went through a lot in her life. And she was truly, truly a great soul. Swami Kriyanandaji had the greatest regard for her. In fact, he ended his autobiography, The Path, with this sentence, the very last 2 sentences of that great autobiography. Swamiji writes, "And so ends my story. As Sister Gyanamata would often say, God alone, God alone." And this phrase, God alone, she had a sign hung above her bed, God alone, God alone. And that says a lot about who she was. I'll talk a little bit about her life, because her life was a story that also really embodied the right attitudes that she talked about in her writings. And her writings are mostly, almost entirely, I believe, letters that she wrote to her sister disciples and to other disciples of Master as their counselor. She never, as far as I know, never gave a talk or a lecture or didn't regularly or rarely. She was very inward, very private, very quiet. She only came to Yoganandaji when she was age 55. And so for those who feel bad about coming late in life to this path, well, I'll channel Sister Gyanamata a little bit and just say, stop whining about it and just understand. And I would be more compassionate, but since we're talking about her approach, she was tough and she would just say, basically, get over it and get on with it, essentially. And it's very powerful, her approach. It's an inner renunciation, and she became fully liberated in this lifetime. Master said, not just Jivan Mukta, but my understanding was she went back to God. And she came to Master only at age 55. Now, she was a great soul before that. She just met many great people. She had a few teachers, studied the teachings of India. She had dinner with Rabindranath Tagore before she met Master. So she had contact with many great souls who Tagore came to her home because her husband was a professor at a university in the northwest part of the US in Seattle, Washington. And when she met Master at age 55, that was it. She knew right away. And he gave her an experience of Om in her home there in Seattle. And if you know how to get there, you can still go to that home. It's a private residence, but sometimes people are allowed to go there, and there's still a vase of orange flowers always kept on that very place where Master blessed her for the first time. And she put these orange flowers there herself and kept them there. So at age 60, 5 years after she met Master, she moved to Mount Washington to be in Master's ashram. She was married, but her husband gave his blessing for her to go and find God and to live as a nun for the rest of her life. The thing is that when she came to Master, the doctors said there was no hope for her because she had so much karma she was working out in this life. If you ever really struggle with working out karma, especially physically, just pick up God Alone and it will console you because you realize that, number one, people have done much more. Number two, it's the way the Guru helps us become free. And I'll talk a little bit more about that because that's really, really important to who Sister Gyanamata was. So she moved in 1932, she moved to the ashram. And the way she put it was the last chapter in life is the most important, which is very interesting. Again, for those who have come to the path later in life, the last chapter in life is the most important. There was another disciple of Master who Swamiji talked about, who was an atheist before she met Master. And she met Master when she was, this other person, not Gyanamata, when she was like 75 or something. Swamiji said this other elderly woman found God in this lifetime just by tuning into Master, listening to his recordings or his songs. So it's possible for all of us. A modern way of putting that, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And so our part, no matter when you come to this path, finish strong, finish very strong, because that's really way more important than the stumblings we go through early in life. And who knows, maybe we have karma to work out that has to be worked out for some people before they come to the Guru. And so feel that the Guru has been guiding you and don't have any regrets about anything you've ever done to, in your mind, delay coming to the path and coming to the Guru. So she was bedridden most of the last remaining years of her time with Master. She was ill. The last 20 years of her life was truly extreme. She was just going through one thing after another. She almost left the body a few times. And she was working out the rest of her karma in this life. And she wrote all about it. She wrote about right attitude, how to deal with these things. She says something interesting. I'm going to quote some things from her because her words in her writings, in her letters, really convey her nature and just the strong attitude of just, being a renunciate, but being very inwardly strong, but with deep love for God and Guru. And she went through a lot of physical pain and suffering. And the way she put it, she understood, and this is the Gyan of Gyanamata. She says, a master does not care if you suffer or not, whether your feelings are hurt or not, because he knows that when his work for your soul is accomplished, all suffering will be over for you. And so sometimes we think that a master comes to make our lives easier, at times, or maybe sometimes we think that the love of a guru and the love of our guru is expressed through the good things that he gives us. But what she was saying, she says that really in her life, the love of the guru was expressed through helping her get through the suffering and not alleviating it. Very interestingly, something like 3 times she was at death's door in those last 20 years. And every time Master said, he said, she was ready to go, he said, but he said, I prayed that she could stay in the body longer. And you think, okay, he prayed to keep her in the body so she could suffer for 20 more years. That's, what kind of help is that? But he said that it was because he wanted her to work out all the rest of her karma and be completely free, and the karma of many others. He said that she took on the karma of others to help them. And the final words that she said when she was on her deathbed and getting ready to leave the body, her final words, which she's sort of famous for, she says, what joy, too much joy, too much joy. And we've seen with other disciples of this path very similarly. My wife, Maria, she suffered from cancer and battled cancer for 10 years, the last 10 years of her life. And she had a tough life. She grew up in the Soviet Union and was persecuted and, extremely harshly by the communists there during that time. And she came to Ananda and she had tough karma. She worked out a lot of karma. And the last 10, 15 years of her life, she kept that book, God Alone, right there. It was there in the living room on the table next to where she would sit for the last 15, 20 years of her life. It just was always there. It was just, for those who are going through tests and karma, it's a Bible, to keep close at hand, to encourage you, to inspire you, to lift you up and give you strength. And just like sister, my wife, her last words were Om Guru, Om Guru. And she just expressed this extreme joy and freedom the last years of her life. And so don't measure our discipleship in terms of the good things that the Guru does for us. Really look at the terms of divine grace, because very often the best things that the Guru does for us is to help us go through this karma, to not save us from it, but to give us the strength to get through it. one time sister she saw a karmic test coming, and she prayed and she realized that she couldn't avoid it. It was going to come. And it was a big test, but she saw it and she said, okay, change no circumstance, change only me. Change no circumstance, change only me. This is a good mantra right now with everything that's going on. There's just, I think, there truly is weeping in every home in this country right now. It's just, I think we all know people who have left the body every day. I think each of us knows, we hear of one more of our friends or Guru Bhais who is dealing with life-threatening situation, or who has come down with COVID. And just, so pray, ask the Guru's grace be in them. But when this intensity of these challenges of life come, be strong, be like sister, change no circumstance, change me. And when we can change and develop that strength, we can help people so much more. We can be a support for people so much more when we have that inner strength of the great saints. So really understand that suffering, tests, challenges, they truly are the Guru's grace. Swami Kriyananda, his life was full of that too. And he said that when tests come, try to see it as the Guru's grace. And when we do, you'll see that the strength of the Guru, the love of the Guru comes through that test. It's just when we're receptive and open, the test comes, but so does that grace, so does that bliss. And we don't always see it in the moment, but just trust that it's there. So in the coming weeks, there will be more talk about some of the attitudes that she talked about endurance, and especially discipleship and attunement, and all these different qualities. But discipleship and attunement was the deepest, most powerful aspect of her life. She had this deep inner attunement with Master, where other people had maybe more of an outward relationship, but he would come into a room with some of the disciples there, and she would be there, and she would never say a word. She would just be in the back and just be in her spine, deeply tuning in and listening to the Guru. And one time he walked in the room and just others were there. Master didn't say a word. He just walked in the room, looked at her and just nodded and then left. She had that deep inner connection to Master. One of the other disciples, the disciples were gathered, and they were all very excited because Master was coming back, perhaps from being away for a few years in India, I don't know. But the disciples were all excited and, talking, Master's coming back, and Sister was there, and she was just completely in the spine. And one of the younger nuns asked her, aren't you excited? Aren't you excited? Master's coming. And she just said very quietly, not in a harsh or judgmental way, she just said very quietly, he's always here. And for her, he was always here in her heart. That's the kind of deep, very powerful and strong inner attunement and connection that she had with the Guru. So Vineet will share some more about this great, great soul.
Thank you, Devarshiji. And I just wanted to reiterate what Devarshiji was saying in the beginning about this book, God Alone. It's a really, really beautiful book with compilation of letters and written by her to her sister disciples and brother and sister disciples, letters to Master and letters from Master. And there are even some notes from her personal diary which are there over there, which I actually wanted to share a little bit about. When I started, I've read this book so many times, not fully, but in parts at different times in my life. But especially when I came on the spiritual path, when I started my journey on the spiritual path, this book was of immense help to me. And I think this is something which is helpful all the time. Even today, when I was reading, here I was reading some letters about her suffering, going through physical pain, physical challenges, and all I felt was joy. And I just couldn't figure out, like, how does this work? But it wasn't the physical suffering, but more the response of hers to that outward situation, which really changed everything. And the bhav of it literally changed, that it wasn't really about suffering, it was about joy. And like Devarshiji was saying, her last words, too much joy, too much joy. And just about the title itself, God Alone, I wanted to share a personal story, just also along the lines of what Devashiji was sharing and about his wife, Naya Swami Maria. And I was in a phase in my life when you could say God alone was not the only answer. And, or at least consciously, it was not the only answer. You know, the subconscious mind can sometimes play tricks with our mind. And I was seriously considering some other choices in my life. And but I wasn't sure about it. And I sat down and I thought, okay, fine. In my life, questions have been very simple, and getting answers have been even more simpler. Just, talk to an acharya, or watch a video of Swamiji, or watch a video of one of the acharyas. Just tune into something which is, which emanates higher consciousness, or read God alone, for example. And I was watching many videos, and one of the videos which just popped up, and I mean, we say thoughts are universally, not individually rooted. And when you put out the right energy, even YouTube listens properly and gives you the right suggestions in your life, that this is what you exactly need in your spiritual growth. And to make the story short, I was listening to this talk of Naya Swami Maria, and she essentially said, there is no plan B on the spiritual path, meaning God alone is the only answer. And I should say, I had a bent spine, and it was late in the night, and I was just like, okay. It was after a tired day in the office, like I had a busy day at the office, and listening to those words, I just had to, sit straight and straighten my spine, because I was just like, there is some serious thinking to be done. God alone is the answer. There is no plan B. And yes, in this case, it was very dramatic, but there are so many times in our lives when, subconsciously, the choices which, one might be looking at is really plan B, oh, no, this situation is a little difficult. Let me just try to bypass it, or this seems a little harder. And what subconsciously the mind is really trying to do is work out a plan B, whereas it never works. Like, just like, we heard these words of Sister Gyanamata, which I would like to actually read it again, because I wanted to share something more along those lines. And this is from her letter. She said, late one afternoon, I was kneeling in prayer in the chapel. I was thinking of something that was coming into my life that filled me with apprehension. I knew that it was not the will of God that I should be saved from the experience. Even at that moment, it was moving toward me. Suddenly, God told me the prayer He would listen to, and I said quickly, change no circumstance of my life, change me. My prayer was instantly answered. I was changed. And this is what I think, especially now, is the prayer we all need to a great degree. Change no circumstance, because honestly, there's only so much control we have on the outward circumstance of our lives. But change me, yeah, certainly, I can change. I can change my response. And even any outward suffering, and just seeing that can actually fill one with joy. And there was a time when, I was in an environment which was very toxic, and people were very negative. And this was, it was an office environment, it was a work environment. And what I would do was, this sounds very funny, but there was no place of being quiet in the whole, it was a very big factory, but there was no place where one could be quiet even for 2 minutes, except one. They had world class toilets. And I had to, I just spent every day, at least, some time of the day, 15 minutes, I would lock myself in the toilet and just, have my time of peace, and then come out. And especially at that time, nobody would complain, why are you not responding to your emails, or why are you not picking, your intercom on your desk? Because, I mean, come on, you're in the toilet, you can't always expect people to respond. And it was a very difficult time on a very particular day, and things were very toxic as always, but this day it was just topping it. And I was just praying, what should I do? It's so difficult, can this be changed, can that be changed? And the only answer I got was, okay, change no circumstance in my life, change me. And then one other thing which also came, which was like an adjunct to this, was, and which was also Sister Gyanamata's words, and this was, your religion, I might be paraphrasing, but your religion is tested in the cold light of day. And yes, it sounds very nice to say, "Haan, Guruji, sab kar denge." The Guru will take care of it. And God is very sweet. God gave me a job. God gave me this. But when it gets difficult, that is when it is like your religion is really tested in the cold light of day, or at least my religion was tested in the cold light of day. When I was on my own, it was easy, but it's usually the people, and we have quite a few billion people on this planet right now. And there are sometimes rough edges which come around, and right now things are especially so delicate. uh, I was just trying to talk to a friend, and anyone you speak to, just like Devashiji was saying, that it's everyone is going through some form of personal tragedy or the other. And we don't know sometimes what could be the appropriate answer. You can't be an impersonal, or one can't be an impersonal person saying, "Oh, yeah, it's all karma, it's all karma." For God's sakes, that's not the appropriate answer when someone has just lost a dear one. And but your religion is tested in the cold light of day, so what is the appropriate answer? But at the same time, what really happens is that we also get affected in the process of trying to help people. And this is something which a friend was sharing, that I've been trying to call people, help them, support them, but I'm just getting depressed after listening to one story after the other. But I thought about it, and I thought, it's been affecting me also, but the only response has been, how can I give more? And I think that was very much Sister Gyanamata's life. Here she suffered so many years physically, not spiritually, but we see letter after letter, she's not complaining about her suffering. In fact, she's only giving to her sister disciple. She's only giving to Master. She's seeing ways where she can give to people rather than hope, if only somebody could take care of me. I've given my life to God. I've renounced everything. If only somebody could take care of me. That was not her response, and I don't think that would have been the appropriate response either. And even there was a time when Master wanted to, Yogananda ji wanted something which he wanted Sister Gyanamata to do. And I think the communication was happening through another disciple. And her response was very appropriate: say yes and make it snappy. And right now, especially, it's all the more important. Say yes and make it snappy. How can we help in this situation? Not how miserable my life is. And we can figure it out later, the details of it, like how will I help this situation or this person or what. But let's just first say yes and make it snappy, as Sister Gyana Mata would do it, especially. And just also about human grief and suffering, when I was mentioning, it's not just enough to be impersonal, that, oh yeah, it's all, Maya, we come, we go. But even the way two saints related to each other in this case, which was Master and Sister Gyanamata. And these are his words from her memorial service after she left the body. Just an excerpt, it's a very long one, but I just wanted to read this, just in terms of how, even a master who was an avatar would relate to the passing of a dear one. And he said, these are his words: "This is a very difficult occasion for me. I cannot say that I am happy because I terribly miss sister and will continue to miss her. Why spirit makes the delusion of parting with loved ones in death so painful is one of the things about which I often fight with the Divine Father, the Divine Mother. Someone said to me last night, when there were tears in my eyes, that I should be happy that sister is free in the joy of spirit. And I said, I know all that, how happy sister is, how this glorious chapter of her life is closed, how the pain is gone from her body, and that she is released from the terrific test of my father, in which she helped others through the suffering of her own body. My spirit is with hers in God, but these are the tears of love, that on this side I shall miss her." So, just how beautiful it is that on a human level, the saints are perfectly human. Of course, Yoganandaji knew where she is, her state was, but at the same time, he really was going to miss her on this side. So, especially when we talk to Guru Bhais or friends who are going through a difficult time, let's sympathize in their pain. Let's try to add our energy, give our energy to them. See that yes, every suffering eventually will end in joy, but at the same time, see where they are and give them the appropriate energy. But inwardly, we can always be praying, and inwardly, we can always remember that it's all going to end very, very well. So with that, I would like to pass on to Devarshiji if he wants to add anything.
Okay. I will just end by just talking about how extreme her selflessness was in her giving, which is that Master said that she took on people's karma. Imagine suffering as much as she did. And rather than trying to have less suffering or push it away, she had an extreme compassion that was deep. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't just, like a straw fire kind of a devotion or feeling. It was deep divine compassion where she took on the karma of they were her disciples in a way. Master said one time to Swamiji, he said that sister became liberated. And Swamiji was very inward at that moment, and he had this thought. And he remembered that Master said that in order to become liberated, you have to free 6 others. And Master read that thought. He read his mind. And all he said was, sister had disciples. And it's so interesting. That's the degree of attunement between disciple and guru, that Swamiji didn't even have to say the word. Master read his thoughts and responded and said she had disciples. And what Master meant was she didn't have disciples in the sense of people coming to her and taking discipleship or anything like that. I believe that it was really more that she helped people complete their karma that they had to work out by taking it on and liberating them without any fuss, without any taking any of the credit, without these souls maybe even knowing that she was doing it and saying to her, thank you, you're my guru from a past life or such. She just quietly, humbly took on a lot of the karma and a lot of suffering, worked it out gratefully, joyfully, as you can see. And this is the type of giving, heroic love, which is to help others, especially right now. So as Vineet was saying, yeah, we have these human hearts and we have to show compassion and we have to help lift people up. If we have an inner strength of the type that Sister Gyanamata had, then we really can help people right now. We can help them from this position of strength, not by being impersonal, but by being divinely compassionate and not just personally and emotionally compassionate. So we do the best we can with this. It's not easy. As I said, there's weeping in every home, and we all know situations that just break our hearts, honestly, and that are difficult to deal with in any rational way. But try to develop this inner strength, and you'll find that we can help others much more powerfully and deeply, and even much more compassionately by giving them some of our strength, by giving them our love. And, as Vineet said, we can't just tell them it's all a dream because that's completely inappropriate, but we can give them love. We can give them God's love by a simple word, by a simple gesture, by reaching out to them, by conveying a vibration, coming from this deep inner strength. And we all have a duty as disciples of this great master to give love, to give help, to give compassion, to give kindness, to lift people up right now. So enjoy this book for the next month, enjoy these satsangs, and really try to draw on the great strength of Sister Gyanamata to help others during this time, but also to lift ourselves out of despair and suffering and tests and see the joy of God behind everything. So may the grace of the Masters guide us, free us as we go forward. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week on some other aspects of Sister Gyanamata and more reading from her book. And now Bara, I guess, will lead healing prayers for all those in need in India and throughout this world. So thank you for joining us.